Hello, I'm NovaSC, and I've got a beauty of a Protoss versus Protoss to show you right here. I'm against... Oh, I should look up the words before I do this on like Google Translate or something. Have the software speak to me, tell me what this is, because this is like... I don't want to pronounce it, so let's go... I think it's rude. I think it's supposed to be rude. Let's avoid that. And I'm Nova in the bottom left. Yeah, not very well thought through here, but yes, I'm bringing you this game because it's quite a long one, bit of a marathon. I guess I'll skip parts of it in this one because it is one of the few games which warrants it. Might actually have to do something real quick. Apologies. Unless I turn the music on, why not? Even though you probably can't hear it. Let's continue with this. Okay. One of the few games where I'll just skip through the beginning few portions because this is quite a lengthy game. And that's only because there wasn't really many opportunities for my opponent to attack me, and I tended to pick the more passive routes in every single situation because I'm fairly confident with the late game in Protoss versus Protoss at the moment, and I'm happy practicing that quite a bit, as much as possible. So I'm going to show you how I deal with it. So, okay, things are happening now after 5 minutes. This is what Legacy of the Void will fix pretty soon. In fact, I'm pretty worried about this game not getting the viewer count it probably deserves, because this is quite a cool game. And that reason being because it's played in Heart of the Swarm, and not many viewers for Heart of the Swarm at the moment. Understandably, unless it's WCS, of course. Anyway, yes, Blink going for my opponent. He's routed a few Stalkers into his main, just in case of Oracles, I guess, flying in, because they are quite a bit of a threat. Instant losses are common in Protoss versus Protoss. An annoying matchup. Tilt inducing. Although after playing Terran versus Terran and dealing with doom drops and shit like that, Protoss versus Protoss doesn't feel as bad as it used to. Moving with my first Hallucination Scout, I have gone for Sentry Expand. 1 gate expands with some sentries to deal with 4 gates and stuff like that, all those sort of early aggressive builds. Not too much aggression is common these days, before Blink sort of timings, so I'm fairly confident going for this quite constantly without having to worry about relying on those sentries too much. And even if aggression doesn't come, I can still use those sentries to scout, which is what I've just been doing. And I still have a lot of energy left over for force fields, against robo pushes and things. I love this build, it's a good build. I've uploaded a video on this ages ago, the unbeatable PvP macro build. Because in theory there's nothing it should lose against, though I do obviously lose quite a lot, because there's a lot of room for error, lots of little mistakes you can make when doing this build. So he's gone for Blink, and then he's gone for Expand into a Forge. So I'm sure he was, let's have a look at his provision. Yeah, so maybe he was looking to do some wonder what's going on in this guy's head at this point. Because I did see the Blink, obviously. Oh yeah, maybe he just saw that I saw the Blink, didn't really want to go for aggression, and was happy just expanding off it. Going for once you're in at Blink tech, going for an expansion is sort of easy enough to do, because in the event of big attacks coming at the front, you can blink away. You have a very strong army defensively, really. It really does help to be out on the map though when you're going for these sort of Blink builds, because you can be up here and counter attack if your opponent moves out. That allows you to keep a natural safe quite easily. So yeah, strange decisions coming out of this guy. Very early +1, he's even chrono boosting it, and then going for Robo Bay. That was in response to my Robo Bay, and I'm just going for that because yeah, that's the next step into the mid game. I could go for Zealot Archon, or I could go for Immortals. No real need for me to go for Blink at this point because I only have 3 Stalkers, and I have 4 Immortals. Not really, Blink Stalkers aren't really a threat once I have this many Immortals. I have quite a beefy army. Cost is pretty good against Stalkers too, I heard. He hasn't quite started on his Robo yet, has he? Okay, he's decided to get a few Immortals out first before he starts on Colossus. Yeah, I think that Robo Bay was a bit early for him. He didn't really need it. I think he just saw the Robo Bay and was like, I'm having one of those, without really thinking about if he actually could afford it just yet. Whereas I've got my range coming in, I'm getting my first Colossus. I have a really chunky army right now. Army value favouring me quite a bit. Problem is though, I don't have much of a buffer for my immortals here. If I attacked here and pushed, just a few sentries warped in, a few zealots could shut down aggression from me. So I've got a very nice defensive stance here. As long as I'm at home with lots of reinforcements potential, yeah, there's not much my opponent can do about what I've got here. So with my first Colossus, I'm going to be fairly safe to do whatever I want, add on more gateways to go for a push. Later on I can tech up even further, not sure how much further you can tech up. Teching up even further would mean like a second robo, which is a bit crazy. I'm getting crazy getting that so early. Or what's a far more common decision is to take a third base. He's got that first Colossus in now working on range at last. And now he has 2 forges, plus 2 attack, plus 1 armor working on at the same time. This double forge isn't as common recently. It hasn't been as common recently as in the past, perhaps. Amber and Wings of Liberty used to go for double forge openings, but I've definitely not seen too many pro players go for double forge in Protoss vs Protoss. Definitely not this early, because the plus attack upgrades disproportionately better for the price, so doesn't seem much of a worthwhile investment getting the armor there usually. Especially if I'm going to go into Archons, which I definitely am going to go into Archons. The armor's not much help there. So here comes my third. Interestingly, very similarly timed to my opponents, even though I did have the opportunity to expand even earlier than him because of that very chunky, strong army I had defensively. So maybe I missed out on something there. A bunch of gateways coming up here. Do I have a structures tab? Is there a structures tab? Which is the structures tab? T. 2 for structures, obviously. 6 for my opponent and 7 for me. Okay, so we both got similar number of gateways here. I'm definitely liking the 7 gateways a bit more. That allows me to keep on a low unit count with just favouring those strongly gas-heavy units, even to a greater extent. Yeah, having a high gateway count, very useful in Protoss vs Protoss. 3 more gateways coming from my opponent there, so he's going to overtake me there. Very useful in Protoss vs Protoss because, yeah, you don't really want to be making zealots and stalkers and things. At this point in the game, you'll be spending all your money on upgrades and the late game focused units. So having the gateways there allows you the ability to just warp in if needs be. So now my Templar Arco is coming in, so I'm going to be going into. Whoa! Everything's the same in this game. Holy wow! I didn't know how similar everything was. So that's exactly the same, pretty much. Yeah, it is. Okay, cool. But he's going for the double upgrades, whereas I haven't. And I've got a few more gateways, and I'm sitting on, I think, less stalkers and less zealots, definitely. So I've got less wasted units, but he's got faster upgrades. But those upgrades are armor. Interesting, interesting. Now I'm going to go for that 4th, which he has not gone for. And we'll even scout it, in fact. It's knocking down these rocks. Lots of players don't even expect their opponent to take this expansion, it seems. I think a far more common 4th base to take is this one here. I guess fair enough, because you have this ramp to help you defend. Any units coming around here are going to be in a terrible position, because they're going to be flanked from this side off of the ramp, which isn't nice at all. And attack coming from me, I fast forwarded a bit too much. So, after taking that 4th, we both continue making the same sort of units compositions here. Zealots, Archons, Immortals, Colossus, a lot of Colossus. I think the Colossus can has been favouring me, but unfortunately, quite a few of my Colossus have been stuck at the back there. Coming very useful when those Zealots have come in to attack the front line of Colossus, however. So I don't think that trade favoured me at all, because my army was a bit stronger than his. So definitely taking the engagement a lot better. I probably shouldn't have attacked up that ramp the way I did. Maybe attacking up this ramp would have been a better choice, and then I'd be able to take an engagement like this, maybe. But I effectively achieved what I was aiming to do there. I've taken this base here. That's fairly safe. Do I have 2 robos? Does he have 2 robos? He has a single robo, whereas I am on I'm on the 2, so I'm producing robo units faster than he is, and yeah, I definitely think I would be at a. I think I'm at a higher gateway count. No, they're both very high gateway counts, so we're both reinforcing with the gateway units very fast. But here's the differentiation at last between our builds. This is a big one. He's going to go for 5 Stargates, and this might have been because his macro slipped, I'm not sure, earlier on, but yeah, that's a lot of gateways, even though he definitely won't be able to afford that many, and the robot and all the gateways that he's got here. Going for a flick beacon as well, so it looks like he's going to want Allen Tempest, which is a good choice. He's probably seen that I've gone for 2 robos. No, he hasn't actually seen. That's interesting. He's still going to go for those Tempest still, possibly 5 at a time. Interestingly enough, but no, I'm going to continue making Colossus, just a few. 5, yeah, just a few. Got Mothership Core coming back in. Mothership Core, unless you make it into a mothership at this point, the effectiveness becomes less and less as your opponent adds in Stargate units, because it's going to get sniped really fast, and you're not really going to be able to make much use out of the recall. Nice little DT attack coming in here. He's not really mining from this base, except for the gas, which is the most important part of the gas, which is good. So it's nice that I'm going to be able to cut this down. Pulling his whole army back. Oh, I have a perfect opportunity to attack his base now. Could do, there we go. Actually taking both of the watchtowers, not even contested by my opponent here. Quite a few Archons. I think I'm favouring in the Archon count. One of the most effective units in Protoss vs Protoss, the Archon, so that's a really good thing that I've done that. And now I'm moving on in. Oh, just slightly too late, and he's just returned. So I did have a really nice opportunity, but still I'm going to move in on here. Colossus not spread out as much as I'd have liked. The rest of the units were though, luckily. Archon's putting in some serious work here, melting those Zealots really quickly with the Colossus to support. And then the Colossus is going to finish my opponent's Colossus. Archon's still sitting there underneath, but I'm going to have to retreat because I don't really have enough left anymore. So you can see what I'm trying to do here. I'm making rebel units, and those Zealots and the Archons, and they're going to help to clear out the ground units from my opponent, and then I'm going to reinforce with Stalkers, which I attempted to do there, and that's going to help to clear off the air units when they're exposed. I'm still working on upgrades here. Unfortunately queued up too. I remember doing this and didn't have the time to go back and undo it because I was busy readying to attack again. Though now is a perfectly good opportunity. I've probably forgotten at this point though. Now mining from this base again. Hasn't attempted to take the 6th at all. This 6th base, whereas I'm on all 6. He hasn't. No, he hasn't been scouting. Oh, good. Oh my god, he hasn't even scouted that I've taken this. No way does he think I'm on 4 bases. No, I can't imagine that he actually think I'm on 4 bases. I think he must assume that I'm on 5 at this point. So I'm sure he doesn't know about this. I'm sure surely he knows that I'm there. I'm here. It'd be really unfortunate for him if he doesn't. This is the unfortunate part of going into passivity. And that's what going for this air style tends to do. It forces you to play quite a bit of passive until you get up your critical massive units, which allows you to tear through the ground units that you're facing against. And the Archon's just putting so much work here. Colossus clearing up all the ground units he had, so that's finishing off all the war pins here. And Archon's, yeah, doing quite good for themselves. Now my reinforcing Stalker wave. Definitely a pylon closer up. Yeah, that's something I could have improved here. Because I'm walking all the way from my 5th base up to this battle point here. Yeah, now I'm cleared up here. So these trades that I'm doing, they don't look particularly good, but you have to take into consideration he still hasn't taken the 6th over here, whereas I am still settling into this gold, which he has had for a while, to be fair. But yeah, I'm up on bases. Gas count is really the most important part of Protoss vs Protoss, because Zealots are not too good against all the Colossus that I'm going to be making. Though I'm making Immortals at the moment here. It seems a bit strange me making Immortals at this point in the game, considering I'm against no ground armoured units, but Immortals for 4 supply, they do a lot of damage, very good use of supply, and very tanky. They withstand shots from Tempest really well. They reduce that 36 damage down to 10, so that's pretty effective. And they do dealing, even though it's only 26 versus non-armoured, it's 65 so versus armoured ground units, so warping in Stalkers isn't going to do anything. That's pretty much something he can't do. And Colossus, not really going to do much at all. They're going to die very fast, so the few Colossus that he has in his army aren't going to be being particularly effective. Get recount is always a useful thing, but both of me and my opponents have been keeping our money quite low at this point in the game, and we have very high productions, mimicking the amount of income we have here. So we've been able to keep on top of that. I'm going to fast forward a little bit now. It's still persisting with that air army, only producing one at a time. I think 5 definitely was a bit of an overkill on the Stargates, but never mind. Adding in lots of Archons. Not sure how much I like the making Archons from High Templar, because that costs a lot of gas, and he doesn't really have the gas to afford that at the moment, considering all these gas-heavy air units he's making. Whereas I can afford to make more High Templar focused ones, because I've got these extra 2 gases. Though I'm still making Dark Templar ones. And I confused myself by making High Templar. Oh, I'm going for Storm. Okay, cool. So I'm going for Storm at this point. Incorporating in just a couple Stormers. They do pay off quite a lot, because for the amount of supply they take up, they do ridiculous amounts of damage. They deal more damage than a Colossus, and they require only 2 supply. So yeah, very good. They deal damage versus the air units as well. I'll only incorporate these in against air units usually, because they have such an advantage in these chokes, because they can clump up and all attack, whereas your units start to run around each other at the back there, which isn't too good. Adding on even more gateways, now just continuing to pile those in, because my gold base here is being saturated slightly at last. He's had a huge advantage in minerals this whole time, but you can just see how important gas is. Having all these Archons makes such a big difference. Hitting 34 damage at a time with splash damage, extra damage versus Zealots, which aren't really much for trouble anyway, considering I have 5 fucking Colossus. And he's a really strong army. It looks so much bigger than mine. If we look at the army tab, I think it's worth a lot more than mine. Especially minerals, as you'd expect, because of that gold base he's had up much longer than mine. But now we're all maxed out. We're both maxed out. But we're going to see how well these Archons work out. He gets into a good position here, get a few volleys off. I lose an Archon quite instantaneously, but the Colossus for me, melting his Archons. Now I'm going to be pushing up to this ramp. Defender's advantage for him. He's going to have all the warpins very close, but then the Storm's dealing so much damage. He really wasn't expecting that, I believe. He would have spread out his units a bit more, I would have thought, if he was expecting that. Got those 2 Storms off. I have 3 High Templar, probably wasn't microed them as well as I'd expect. But the splash damage here is immense. All those Archons I had really putting in their work. And Tempests just don't have the DPS. Void Rays have good DPS, but they're dying too quickly. These Tempests have a lot of health, which is their one redeeming factor, so they are going to eventually clean up these Archons, but not before all of his Void Rays died off. Now left with only Immortals to have to retreat. Not looking too good for me at this point, even though that engagement did seem to go extremely well for me. Immortals can't shoot up, big disadvantage, and now I'm making the strangest late game choice that you'll see in PvP, which is to make Stalkers at this late in the game. That is a bit strange. But they're going to be extremely mobile, not going to take many losses against those Zealots because of the blinking, the automated blinking action. God, imagine if they were automated, that'd be so good. And I'm moving in again with a relatively small army of units, but I know that he's got those Tempests relatively undefended, and I have lots of Stalkers, I have lots of Archons which can help me get to those Tempests. Now you can see how incorporating the Immortals pays off in so many different ways. He can't warp in. He really can't warp in Stalkers like this to help defend his Tempest, because look at all the damage these Immortals are putting in. More Void Rays warping on in. He must have made 5 at a time there. Clearing out that base. My goals, just sitting on only a few probes mining there, but the most important part is getting the gas coming in. And the income from each of these individual probes is quite silly, because that base is a gold base obviously, and it's undersaturated. And if you didn't know, when a base is undersaturated, the workers mine more efficiently, usually. So I'm adding in even more Archons from Dark Templar, so I can have a ridiculous amount of Archons in this base, in this composition here. He's using the prismatic alignment on the Archons. That doesn't actually do any difference, make any difference, but never mind. the DPS on the Void Rays is pretty good, so it's going to clear out the Archons. But only a few. No splash damage. That is the disadvantage of this guy's army, unfortunately. Stalker's too mobile for him. Too mobile for you. Now the base count of my opponent, it's gotten a bit too low and he's forced to leave, unfortunately. He's run out, I think he's run out of money. Yeah, he's on one base compared to my gold base here. This is almost, yeah, it's not looking good for him, but yeah. You can see how that played out. The composition of Stalkers and Archons at the right times with High Templar when his army got too out of control. And works really well against the Stargate. That could have gone either way, but it was all based on the fights there, the engagements. Maybe not enough splits from him. Changed the course of that battle. If he had a nice concave of Tempest like this as I was pushing up his ramp, then maybe it could have gone a bit differently. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that game, and you can take something away from it. I'll see you later. Goodbye.